Comedian Bill Maher took aim at Jimmy Kimmel's wife, Molly McNearney, for ending relationships with her family members who voted for then presidential nominee Donald Trump. But first, let's listen to McNearney, who appeared on We Can Do Hard Things podcast earlier this month, explaining why she's angry at her MAGA family members.
When I see these terrible stories every day, I'm immediately mad at certain aunts, uncles, cousins who put him in power. And it's really hard. And I wish I could deprogram myself in some way, but I get really angry. And I've sent many emails to family right before the election saying, I'm begging you, here's the 10 reasons not to vote for this guy.
McNearney's comments received backlash, particularly from Real-Time host Bill Maher, who blasted Kimmel's wife for giving her Trump-voting family members what Maher described as an ultimatum on politics.
Molly McNearney, Jimmy Kimmel's wife and head writer, went public on this topic recently, so I feel it's fair to comment respectfully in public. She says she's lost relationships with relatives because she wrote them an email before the election with 10 reasons why they shouldn't vote for Trump, and some still didn't obey. So, 10 reasons. I can think of 100.
Here's some more from Maher.
But I would never present it to someone as an ultimatum. Ultimatums don't make people rethink their politics, they make them rethink you. Somewhere along the way, my values became code for I'm the only one with a moral compass. You know what would have been a better exercise? Write a top 10 list to yourself where you try to imagine 10 reasons why 77 million Americans didn't want to trust you.
Damn, that was a powerful monologue. I totally agree with him there. Yeah, if you're furious with your friends and family members for having different politics than you do, keep that. You should probably just keep that to yourself because it's not flattering. It's just not a flattering thing to admit that I begged people I knew not to vote this way or to vote that way. You and I weigh in. That's our job, is to weigh in politics and tell you what we think. So hopefully you care what we think, or if you don't care, then you shouldn't watch really. But I don't, in my personal capacity, is if somebody asks me what friends and family, well, what do you think about this? I talk to them about politics because it's my job. But I'm also just as happy to not really, because it's work. Yeah. And when I'm not working, I'm happy not to talk about politics. I'll let you bring it up if you really want to. And if you ask me what I think, I'll tell you, and why I like this about Trump and don't like this about Trump. But I'm just as inclined in my personal life to say, well, what do you think? Because I hear myself talk about it all day, and I get sick of listening to me talk about it. I talk about it now on so many different programs. I think I've said this before. I said it in my holiday monologue. Using the power of time travel, I'm going to do a monologue on this at some point in the future. It's not happened yet, but I have a premonition that I will do one.
What your radar might be
about how we should learn to set politics aside more often in our personal lives, in our entertainment, in our cultural engagement, and that we be healthier paying less attention to politics.
Maher made a really good point to me about it's kind of easy to blanket say that 70 plus million people that voted for a different party than you, whatever side, have some complete moral differences than you. Some people actually saw a policy, several policies. Some people might be one issue voters. There's been several times where I have good friends and I'm really confused by the choice that they made, whether it's locally or federally in an election. But I don't think that we completely have unattached moral fibers and that you're the worst person in the world. I do think that social media, what we talked about earlier, with places like X, they inflame some of that fire of differences. So it's if you pick this candidate, you hate me in all these ways, which we're knowing now by dialogue is not that accurate. By watching Mamdani go to the White House, watching Marjorie Taylor Greene on The View, dialogue's able to happen. Respect should be there. And even if it starts with a lot of loudness that's propelled on social media, once you get in person, this should be easy to do, right? You should be able to talk about things. But I think that when you start to humanize another side and think about how many people voted for President Trump 2 times now, you should be interested in having a conversation about what were the things, particularly because a lot of people did vote for him for the economy, that they were looking forward to having happen. What are you not hearing from Democrats or whomever how are you struggling? And I think that is the principal thing that a lot of Democrats miss.
Because people vote in their own interest. I know I have a close family member who, has been a Republican all his life, but doesn't particularly like Trump, finds Trump obnoxious, some of the behavior. It's not a member of the Trump cult or whatever, might not vote for Trump, but is voted for Trump every time because the Democratic policies on real estate and banking and some other things would just make the business he works for the regulations are burdensome for the business. So got to vote for Republican. We've got another family member who she voted Republican all her life, but can't stand Trump. So if it was any other person, would vote for any other Republican, but voted for Democrats because it's Trump. Can't stand her. So you never know exactly what's going. I think people like Jimmy Kimmel's wife are thinking, how could someone look at the deportations or the the cruelty and possibly vote for this cruel man who hates democracy? And there's this moral fervor. Like, well, but maybe they own a business where the Democrats have bad policies for it, or maybe
about two things.
You're just like, people are voting in their own self-interest. Maybe somebody doesn't want their taxes to be 52%. So as much as they don't like Trump, they're not going to vote for socialism to run their city because they don't want to pay more in taxes.
And I think for the people that perhaps this is Jimmy Kimmel's wife, perhaps not, I'm not really sure. But there's a quote by James Baldwin that I wanted to remember, so I wrote down, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." And so we all understand that there's a difference, right? So when you have a distinct line of somebody who truly doesn't want to see you thrive, happy, or live because of, like, let's say the color of your skin or, anything other than, like Martin Luther King says, the content of your character, then that's an issue for people. That should be an issue for all people. And so I think when you attach everyone who's looking at a variety of policies and saying, okay, I'm voting for this person for, like you said, a business reason, but not looking at something they might have said about this group or this category or this, like, I can use the easy example we talked about is Nick Fuentes. He's not a public figure running for government, but let's say that he was. Well, he doesn't want to see me win, particularly because I'm a black woman, just like he doesn't want to see J.D. Vance's wife, who's an Indian woman, win in any way. So you supporting him would offend me more than someone else. And me having a direct conversation with him, not with the person that voted for him, would say that me and you can't, like, I can't vote for you, or I can't have anything in common, because the common ground doesn't start with respect and actually seeing me as a full human. And so I think that problem has to come up directly with the person that's doing it. And then people have to be able to decide, like, what is their moral on and off switch. So if that doesn't affect you, but then you have tons of people in your life that it deeply affects, like how J.D. Vance is, like, accepting or not saying anything about what Nick Fuentes said, it directly affects your wife. So if he
Has he not said anything?
He hasn't responded to him saying anything.
I think he's not said anything about him recently, but he has previously said that he's bad and he doesn't agree with his ideas.
But when he spoke about his wife, it's one of those things of like, oh, you actually don't want to see my family happy because you're disrespecting my wife here. And so I think that those are one of those times where you're like, well, no matter what office he ever ran for, not good for me, because you don't have the common lack of respect for just a person because of the way that they descended from. And so that those things come up often in our politics. Hopefully it's all just Twitter bots from other countries. But we're going to learn more about who's bringing those things up. But as you vote for politicians, when you're missing some of those key things that just try to deny people's humanity, then that's when I think people can start to get riled up and say, well, do you not see this? And that's when a conversation is warranted with your friend that may have a business, but they don't see these 5 ways that you will completely be sabotaged by this policy.
But the Jimmy Kimmel's wife, who I guess is not just like some random person, not to pick on her, but is the head writer for his show. I didn't know that. That's what Bill Maher said. I presume that's true. I didn't know it. Is acting as if all the relatives, by voting for Trump, are indistinguishable from Nick Fuentes or whatever, right? It's projecting that rationale onto it when it's not. It's not that they're racists and anti-Semites and that they think Trump is an avatar of that. Trump has decried those ideas any number of times. You can disagree with his policies, but that's not what it's about for him. It's about, he thinks, making America stronger and more secure, and we can disagree about how to do that, and we do disagree about how to do that. I just think it's not helpful to be so worked up about politics in general, and people should try to put it away.
Yeah, family is forever anyway. So, politics change and cyclical. People might be, I remember people were calling Bush the worst of times. And now it's like Bush is sharing candy with Michelle Obama, and he's so nice, and like,
Right.
and
Makes
people
many
look
Republicans think liberals don't mean it when they're like, "This is the worst thing ever." The next thing,
it makes
no,
me
this is
think
the
that-
worst thing ever. We missed the last thing. It's like, okay, I bet you'll, and then under President
know that
J.D.
people are gonna
Vance,
miss- I
you'll
don't know.
fondly, they're already gearing to. You'll hear, I heard Jen Psaki say it on TV. Vance is actually more extreme than Trump, and he'd be worse than Trump. So they're already mentally
Missing Trump?
preparing themselves to miss Trump.
Okay.
When or if Vance is president.
That's a Thanksgiving surprise, everybody missing President Trump, but we'll see. Because I remember the last election, there was a bit of fatigue when he left. That's why Biden won. But we'll see.
So stuff that in your turkey. President Trump moving to terminate the temporary protected status for Somali immigrants in Minnesota. That's next on Rising.